Hi, I'm Kristen Baldwin from Yahoo TV, and we are thrilled to be here with Ms. Andrea Martin.
Thank you.
Well, we have a lot to talk about, so we'll just start right off. Tell us about how Great News came to you and what interested you about the role.
Tina Fey. Tina emailed me, or maybe my agent, I can't remember who it was, but said, would you like to have lunch with, I'd like you to have lunch with Tracy Wigfield, who wrote this, and I'm going to come with Robert Carlock, but they both executive produced this, and we want to talk to you about an idea that Tracy has. So we met at Cafe Luxembourg, and I had an omelet, and and Tracy, talked about the premise, which was really based on her relationship with her mom. And I didn't really know what was going to come of it. Really, it was just a conversation. And then a few months later, that was November, and then it wasn't until March or something that I heard from NBC, and then there you go. Read the script, thought it was amazing, and then was offered the part.
What's so interesting is that it is based on a real relationship, like you said, and knowing that Carol is based on a real person, how does that affect how you approach the role and how you prepare for it?
Well, I've been preparing to play the part of a mother for 35 years because... So basically, I play a mom on Great News and a mom in Difficult People for Hulu. So basically, whatever I'm wearing that day is wardrobe for the show. I'm just, because I'm a mom in real life. So, I just used my own great love and affection for my own children. But I met Tracy's mom during the pilot, and what she has, which I don't have, is she doesn't have any, cynicism, right? She has no filter, which you can tell by the way that she wrote the show. She really is like that. I second guess everything, and I come from a world of comedy, so it's all about irreverence, and so it was a great benefit to meet her. Because it's a quality that I really don't embrace. I embrace it, but I don't live like that, which is just treating everybody the same way, not being intimidated by anything, talking to the president like she talked to somebody in craft service, just excited for life, unconditionally loving her daughter. And it's a very great infectious spirit with no filter. And so it was really important for me to meet her and, get that quality, I think.
And had you met her before you started shooting, or was it on that set day? Because you mentioned when we were watching upstairs that she's in the funeral scene.
Yeah, I'd met her in the, the funeral. She's right behind me, so I'd met her there. But Tracy introduced me to her. We shot that at New York 1, the pilot. And then we shot the rest of the show in LA. But I met her on the set of New York 1, and she just, she's a much taller person, and I don't know, it really infused how to play the part. Yeah.
Carol is overbearing, but she's also, you really root for her and like her, and that's a tricky combination to pull off.
Yeah.
How is that? How do you do it?
Wow. How do I do it? Well, I don't think of her as being overbearing. I know NBC uses that word, and everybody's used that word. I don't think of her as being overbearing, but then, of course, I'm the mom, and I never think I'm overbearing with my own children. But I think of her just really loving her child and championing her child, being enthusiastic for her child. So maybe the real love for the child comes through for Briga, who I just love, the young girl who played my daughter. So I don't know, love kind of is just a stronger emotion than everything else, and so maybe that's what came through.
And it's also, it's a character who could be sort of one note, but yeah. She's really fully fleshed out, which is in part, of course, due to your performance, and also I'm sure the writing helps with that as well.
Yes, I think the writing is everything, and I think that Tracy found a great blend between being overly involved, the mom, and not having boundaries, and someone that truly believes in her daughter. And also, I think Tracy looks at her mom as someone that should have a chance at life. She doesn't work, but I think that she really respects the fact somebody older going back to work and having a very rich third chapter. And, you know, she brought her daughter up and now it's time for her. And I think that's genuine. I don't think that was a contrivance. And I think there's such great authenticity in their relationship. And I hope I hope that will draw people to it. Because I know it's zany and it's, you know, it's a workplace comedy. But I hope that the relationship comes through as being real and honest, even though it's a comedy. Yeah.
Now, obviously, you know, you've had an incredible career, and you spent 5 years as part of the groundbreaking sketch comedy show SCTV, which is now obviously just a touchstone for everyone working in comedy today. You know, I'm sure at the time, it was hard to sort of think about what lessons am I learning, but now looking back, you know, what are some of the things you now know you took away from that, and how is that sort of, how have you incorporated those, you know, what you learned into your future roles?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I was literally just talking about that with the person that did my makeup, because I think the biggest thing I got from SCTV was the relationship between all of us, the actors and the crew. You know, we didn't shoot it live, and we shot it in Canada, and we shot it over 5 years, 6 years. So we really depended on the crew, who remained the same as collaborators. You know, they were our audience. Sometimes they would toss out lines. We'd know by if they laughed or if they didn't laugh, if the scenes were funny. And I think that I wouldn't say enmeshment, but I guess that trust with people around you really has helped me in everything I've done in television. It doesn't often happen that way, but I was saying on this show and on Difficult People also, it feels like we're all in it together, and I really rely on everybody around me to help. So I don't see a separation, and I think that was really because of SCTV.
Right. And obviously, you know, the lineup is incredible. Eugene Levy and Catherine O'Hara, John Candy. I would be remiss if I didn't ask you to tell us some stories, some of your favorite stories of working with these people, and anything you might have stolen from them.
What did I steal from them? Oh, gosh, I don't think I don't know if I stole anything from them, but I'd like to steal from Catherine O'Hara, who I think is a genius, but I don't think I've got the kind of, well, you know, we're two different performers, really, and Catherine and Eugene are in Schitt's Creek right now. I don't know if anybody sees it here. It's on, yeah, it's so great. And Eugene's son, Dan Levy. It's so great to see all of our kids grown up now and in their business. One of my sons is a film score editor, and he's in London right now scoring a film, and he just did King Kong, and it's just amazing. And then Dan Levy is, Catherine's kids are younger. What did you know, I think the camaraderie, and I think, again, what I just said, what the word be, the love, the excitement of creating something with people that you really liked. So everything felt like a rehearsal, and that kind of spirit, I think I continue to bring with me. It always feels like a playground, and that's what it felt like on SCTV. And when I get together with them, you know, we're about to do, I probably shouldn't say this, but, you know, I'm not going to give you the details, but we have been talking about doing a documentary on with SCTV and filming it. So I think so we've been meeting lately, and that's been so exciting for all of us to get together. Rick Moranis has been part of it, and yeah, it's been great. Yeah.
Woo. Do you have a favorite sketch or character or moment when you look back? I mean, I know there's so many, but do you have one that holds a special place in your heart?
For SCTV, you know, I loved working with Catherine. I loved Libby Wolfson and Sue Bopper Simpson to get, you know, both of us together on Libby Wolfson. I love doing Edna Boyle with Dave Thomas. I love doing Mrs. Falbo with John Candy when he played Mr. Messenger. I'm thinking about all the scenes that I did with the different actors. Stories, I'm not good first of all, I'm not good remembering, period, but I'm not good remembering specific stories. When we shot that show, we would shoot 17 hours a day. We would, there weren't the kind of unions. SAG-AFTRA wasn't around in Canada when we shot that. So there were very long hours and getting in and out of characters constantly. So I don't remember specific stories other than the kind of joy and giddiness every single day, sitting in the makeup chair, figuring out what character you're going to be. All of us being on the set when other actors would appear. The actors that weren't in the scene were always on the stage, giving them notes. It was really so collaborative, such a family.
Yeah. You mentioned difficult people, and you obviously you play another great mom on that, Dr. Kessler, who's very difficult in her own way, but she's so much fun. People really love her. How did that role come about, and what was that experience like for you, or is?
So how lucky am I that Tina Fey executive produces Great News and Amy Poehler executive produces Difficult People. And look, we all came from Second City. They're a generation, another generation. They're in their 40s. I'm not going to mention my age, although it's in print everywhere. Why are people so fixated with oh my God, I know you can Google it. But yeah, anyway, so it's so great to have that generation that grew up watching SCTV actually hire me, because I'm as big a fans of theirs. So Amy wrote me. We had done a pilot many years ago that Judd Apatow did. It was his first pilot. It was called Sick in the Head. And it was a great pilot, and Fox didn't pick it up. I'm sure they're kicking themselves now. And that's how I met Amy. And then she just emailed me and said, we're putting this together. Would you like to play a part? And I said, absolutely. And I didn't really know didn't know where it was going to go. And now look at it. We're in the middle of shooting our 3rd season.
That's great.
Yeah.
And how does the experience...
Oh, I'm so glad that you like that show. I love it.
How does the experience of shooting a show for a streaming network like Hulu differ, or how does it compare when you shoot, a broadcast sitcom like Great News?
Wow. Well, when you shoot Great News for NBC, you'd really have much more time. We took, I think, 10 days to shoot the pilot and a week to shoot each episode. We're shooting 10 shows and Difficult People in 2.5 months. And so it's really crazy. There's less money. They're under the gun. It's really, there's no time to learn lines. You have to know them before you get there. There's no downtime. I mean, I shot yesterday from 6 a.m. till 11 o'clock last night. And I think in that time did scenes from 3 different shows. It's, you have to really be on your mark, and there's really very little downtime. But it's exciting. It's a whole different world. I'm so grateful to be able to be in 2 worlds.
That's interesting. And, people would think that it's maybe more luxurious of a schedule on streaming because they seem to have all the money, but apparently not.
No. Well, I'm not getting any of the money. Who have you talked to? I'd like to know that person. Kevin Spacey? Is he the one that... No, this is Hulu. I don't know who... Anyway, yeah.
There's so
He's
much...
hosting the Tonys this year. I bet you all know that. Yeah. Okay.
You've done a ton of really notable voice work as well. Everything from, Rugrats, Jimmy Neutron, Sesame Street, Kim Possible. How did you get into that line of work, and what interests you and challenges you about that?
I haven't done any for a while, actually. When I was living in LA and bringing up my kids there, those were the days where you were hired to do voice work when you weren't a celebrity. It's such a different world now, really. And I don't know how people who really made their livelihood doing voice work, I just don't know what happened to them, because now it's all about stars, as if kids go to a movie and care if Angelina Jolie did the voice. It's bizarre to me. But in those days in LA, I don't know. I would, Jimmy Neutron was a season. I guess just one show led to the other, and I'd do maybe one a season. It was a great way to. Voice work is fabulous because you don't have to look great. You just show up, and it was really a nice thing to augment the rest of my career. But I haven't done anything for a long time in voice work.
Is it something you'd like to do more of, or are you know?
I'm happy doing sure, listen, if somebody said show up to, what did I do? I think I did Bob's Burgers. I think I did The Simpsons. Something recently I did a voice on, and I can't remember what it was. I'm sure it's on the IMDb. I can't remember what it was. Sure, I'd be happy to, but, it wasn't my career, really. It was just a lovely thing to be able to do every once in a while. And I love doing theater. I love doing this TV show. And so, yeah, bring it on. I'll do anything, really. I'll sell my soul to the devil. Go ahead.
Speaking of the Tonys and theater, a few years ago at the Tonys, they did a big, fun musical number about sort of the love-hate relationship that many actors have with TV, theater actors who have gone on to do TV and then they see their shows canceled, and it's sort of this tension. And I'm wondering, obviously you are a Tony winner and you're very well known for your Broadway career, and do you have any sense of that love-hate, with TV and wanting to that tension that other actors have sort of joked about, or how do you feel about it?
What's the tension that they feel?
Well,
that
it was Neil Patrick Harris was hosting, and then Andrew Reynolds from Girls, he came up on stage and talked about how he had moved out to LA to do a TV show, and then it got canceled. And then Laura Benanti, who is obviously well known on Broadway, she had 2 shows canceled.
And then it got canceled.
And
so
I think sort of that, like, we're aiming for TV, but we always come home to the theater.
I see. Was that the year that I won for Pippin? Because I probably was just thinking about myself. I like literally, because I'm like, wait a minute, I can't remember that. I was like probably thinking, what if I win and I have to do a speech? I have to do a speech. It's so terrible. It was that year. Okay. Gosh, no, I do not think that way. I think very seldom do shows get picked up. Look, when you've been doing it as long as I have, you really know that it's a crapshoot. You're lucky to even get a pilot, and then you're unbelievably lucky if the pilot gets a show order, and then for it to get picked up after that. So look, if this gets picked up, it'd be really great news, by the way, if this got another season. That would be amazing. But if I can come back into the theater, I think it's wonderful. I don't ever feel like if this doesn't go, then I can always come back to the theater. It's an honor to be in the theater. It's my favorite thing, actually, to be in the theater. So I never think it would be second place at all. No. So I'm going to slap them when I see them.
Next, you give them a piece of your mind. What's sort of skills do you bring from the theater to a sitcom, and is it, do you have to flex different muscles, or how does that work as a performer? Knowing that obviously one thing is, and this is a single camera comedy, right?
Yes, both of them are. Single camera. Yeah.
How does that? How do you approach each one differently?
I don't know if I do it differently. I try to not project as much, or the camera's right there. Last night we shot a scene and Stalker Channing played my sister, and I just noticed how she's a fabulous theater actress, but I just noticed how she brought it down, and I was thinking I got to bring it down a little bit more too. She's really good. But I don't know. I guess it's the same joy and maybe the technique just a little quieter, really. And when you're shooting film and television, it's all your eyes say everything, and in theater, it's how to reach the back row. So I try to adjust a little bit, but I don't know if I'm doing it really that differently. Yeah,
and so when you take a TV show, are you also thinking ahead about what? If there's a theater role you might like to do going, I know that people try to do them on their hiatus, or how does, do you plan ahead that way, or are you just like, I'm just going to take this and see where it goes?
Definitely the latter. I never think, how am I going to fit in a play? No, I've never thought that. That's never been the thrust of my career. It's very hard for me to multitask. It's hard, I have to compartmentalize. I'm doing Difficult People now, and that finishes, and then I hope Great News gets picked up. And I'm shooting a movie after difficult people actually in Toronto. But and they're wanting to talk about wardrobe, and I'm like, no, I can't think about wardrobe for this movie because I got to learn my lines for difficult people. I've never been able to do that. I just try to take it one step at a time. That's how I've lived.
Yeah. So we have some questions from the audience.
Okay.
Ari asks, do you still work with an acting coach? And if so, is there one you can recommend to actors who are always trying to upgrade and improve their craft?
I do work with an acting coach all the time. His name is Larry Moss, and I'm sure you know him, but I bet he's like crazy expensive. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Sure, call him, but I think it's, I've been working with him for many, many, many years. But I think if you're a new actor, not a new actor, but an actor who works with him for the first time, my sense it's probably very expensive. But here's what I would recommend when he does workshops in the city. If you can do one of his workshops, it's just like working with him as a coach. I would highly recommend that. When I was 50 and I just was frustrated where my career was going, and I was like, why do people think of me as a sketch performer? And I know I can do more. And I called him. I was living in LA, and he said, come to my acting classes. And I went to his classes for a year, and I was by far, everybody was 20, and I was by far the oldest person there. But I was determined to change the direction of my career, and I learned so much from him. And then I got the part in Oklahoma on Broadway, which most people would not think would be a real detour, but for me, it wasn't sketch comedy. It was a solid pioneer woman, and really wasn't a comedic role. And then my career started to change. So I think working with him in acting class was instrumental. So I would say that if you can, yeah. That's the only coach I know. Yeah, for sure. Was that you? Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you can look on his website too, and I would definitely say take those classes. They're really life-changing, honestly. Yeah.
Is there something in particular that you remember learning from one of those classes during that year that, was new to you? Because obviously you have so much experience. It's really interesting to hear that, like, you just keep learning.
Yeah, so he kind of gets to know you, and then he picks a play for you, a scene in a play that he thinks intuitively might stretch you, might make you frightened, might push you, and so he picked a scene from Frankie and Johnny and the Clair de Lune, and it was, of course, the right scene to pick. Do you all know that play? It hasn't been done for a long time. Yeah, so so Kathy Bates did it originally. I think she was in her 40s, and she in a one-night stand. It was just done on Broadway with Edie Falco and Stanley Tucci. Yeah. So the opening scene is, two people in their 40s, and I was in my 50s then, who were on a one-night stand. And so what it needed was great vulnerability and great nakedness, both figuratively and literally, on stage. And I wasn't used to that at all. And it was really the right thing to do. I will never forget it, actually. And I did the scene with David Rashi, who was my age too. And Larry asked him in to do the scene with me. And it was really difficult to not rely on comedy, to be there with very little on. The scene opens up and they're in bed. I had a bathrobe on. But to be in front of all these young students and to feel so naked and allow myself to cry, and I feel it was really, it opened up something in me where I thought, I can do this, nobody's going to make fun of me, and I'm not going to die if I show you my heart. And so it was amazing. And then a few years later, the great Nikki Martin, who's no longer with us, who was a beautiful director, asked me if I'd do the Rose Tattoo in the Huntington Theater in Boston, and nobody would offer that kind of part to me. But Nikki did. Nikki believed in me. And again, I work with Larry, and I went to Sicily, and I lived there for 6 months, and I work with Larry in in Verbier, Switzerland. He was doing a workshop there one summer, and I was there for 2 months, and really, really worked on it because, again, it was a departure for me. And I don't know, he's been really instrumental in my life and everything I've done, actually. And that part, again, you know, it was showing, you know, Anna Magnani did it in the movies, and Maureen Stapleton did it on stage. That hasn't been done for a long time. Now I'm too old to play it, but anyway, I love doing it. And so that opened up something else to me, this raw passion, and this Italian woman who loved this man so much that she was willing to, you know, destroy her life because she wanted him so much. And I'd never had that. Nobody'd ever given me a kind of role to, you know, be so sensual and so passionate. And so, yes, that's my Larry Moss stories. And so, yeah, there you go.
Great. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Ellen wants to know, where does your comic gift come from? Was your family funny? And have you ever done stand-up? So those are 3 questions.
Well, I've never done stand-up. That scares me to death, because stand-up's all about you know, the end result. And and for me, it's all about process. So it sounds very pretentious, but if I thought I'd have to go on stage and it was all about, oh my God, I hope they laugh at the end of this line, and they didn't, I think it would be, first of all, unsatisfying, and I don't think I don't think very creative experience for me. So no, although I love stand-up comedians, and in awe. I love Louis C.K., Margaret Cho. There are so many people. I love Mike Birbiglia. I'm in awe of what they do and how they tell stories, but it's not something that I gravitate toward. And what were they? Have I always been funny? I grew up Armenian in Portland, Maine, and I guess my need to define myself in a very waspy community, you know, opened up the doors to theater, but I never thought of myself as funny. I did musical comedies until Second City, and I was in my late 20s, and that was the first time I really had done comedy, the kind of comedy you know me from, if you know me at all, from SCTV. And I don't think I ever thought I was funny. I always knew I was entertaining. I knew that I had a big personality, but I didn't know that I could parlay that into a career of comedy.
Do you remember sort of that first moment that you realized, like, oh, maybe I should check out the theater or performing? Like, what was the...
Yeah, well, I know, because I was in children's theater when I was 9 years old in Portland, Maine, and I played the fairy godmother in Cinderella. And I remember thinking, oh my God, at 9 I was playing character parts. So I should have known. I should have known that I was going to have a, you know, I felt very at home. You know, the theater's always been for me a very safe home. It's, you know, it was my hobby starting out, and then it really became a place, a really safe place to create. Nothing makes me happier except being with my children, my sons, than being in a rehearsal room. Nothing. And I bet many actors would say that. Being in a rehearsal room and, oh God, unlocking the puzzle of what makes something work, and just, you know, it's so alive and life affirming.
So as somebody who, you know, obviously you worked in a very collaborative situation with SCTV, and then you mentioned both Amy Poehler and Tina Fey are exec producers on your projects. And what is it like? How does it change the process when the exec producer is somebody who is also not only a writer, but a performer themselves? You know, they both have, you know, very successful performing careers, comedy careers. How does that change or, you know, enhance the dynamic for you?
Well, you know, they both work differently. Tina is, when we shot the pilot, you know, was behind the monitors, so looking at the monitors and in another room, not on the set. And then maybe every hour and a half she'd come out and whisper something in my ear, a pitch for another joke, which was just brilliant. But she, you know, is, you don't really see her, she's not demonstrative, isn't demonstrative in that way. Even though she's a brilliant actress and performer, that when she's producing, she's behind the monitors. Amy, on the other hand, loves being on the set, and that's how I worked on SCTV. So she's the kind of person that would sit just like off where you're shooting and then would yell out a line. So they both work differently. It was like a movie I did years ago called Wag the Dog, and Dustin Hoffman and Robert De Niro. Dustin Hoffman and Robert De Niro were in it, and Dustin Hoffman just chatting and talking and yelling, and the crew and this and that, and let's try this, and come up to my room, and let's do this rehearsal. And Robert De Niro would sit quietly over in the side and just wait till his scene was on. Everybody works differently. So the very short answer is, I feel so lucky that I get to work with two people I respect, both of whom work differently, and both of which are real assets when you're an actress.
That's great. And finally, for our last question, you know, we can't leave without asking, what is the best advice you ever got?
Oh, the best advice I ever got?
Yeah.
The best advice I ever got was from Martin Short, and he said, don't take anything in show business personally. And that is, and I'm sure many people say that to you, but really it's impossible, by the way. And fuck him for saying that, because he actually lives by that. I can't do it, but I try really hard. I try to surround myself with people who are close friends who put my life in perspective. I try desperately to stay off the internet. You know, this is a really vulnerable time right now because the show premieres Tuesday night. And believe me, I want to get on there and see what people are saying. And it's disastrous. It's just, first of all, if anybody were to write anything negative, can you imagine going, you know, I'm going on Seth Meyers and I'm going on Watch What Happens Live on the Today Show, and just knowing that people out there might not like it, it'd be so hard to promote it. So, and what am I going to do? I've done it. I'm proud of it. I think it's funny. I have no control over it, but it's an addictive thing, the internet. So I'd say stay off of that. Stop Googling yourself, but Google me.
That's so great. Andrea Martin, thank you so much. It has been such an honor to chat with you. And great news premieres on NBC on Tuesday. Thanks so much for coming.
Thank you. Thank you.